Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Wei Xiang and I'll be your host for today's talk. Now, if you're new with us, a very warm welcome to you. We hold talks like this a couple of times a year for our friends and family to share a bit more about what we believe, in particular about the person of Jesus. Now, today's talk will be on the topic, Jesus, Intolerant or Inclusive. Now, this topic arises because we might think that Christianity is only for a select group of people, a certain demographic in society. Before Dinesh speaks to us, allow me to read the passage that he will be speaking from today. Now, this passage is written by a historian called Luke. Now, the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to hear him, Jesus. And the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." And he said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me.' And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.' And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now, his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound.' But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him, but he answered his father, 'Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him.' And he said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad. For this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found.'" Hi Dinesh, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and your family?
Sure. So my name is Dinesh. I'm married to Deborah, one wife, for the last 20 years. And I have 3 children. So we have Ethan, who's 16 years old, Elijah, who's 13 years old, and we have a little girl, Emma, who's 9 years old. And it probably won't surprise you, but she thinks she runs the house. I've not always been a pastor, so I've been a pastor now at the Crossing for 11 years. But before that, I read economics at university, and I worked as a financial journalist for the Straits Times, writing for that section of the Straits Times called the Money Pages. I guess you could say that in my working life, I've always been in the news business. So, in the past, as a finance journalist, I wrote about financial news, which had a quarterly significance. But now, as a pastor, I tell people the good news of Jesus Christ and what He's done in history, and that has eternal significance.
Great. But you weren't always Christian. Why don't you tell us what drew you to Christianity?
Sure. So it's two things, historicity and the person of Jesus. Let me elaborate. So if you look at me, maybe you're trying to place me racially, and it's a bit of a challenge. I'm Chindian, so I'm Indian Chinese. And I grew up, therefore, with a mix of Indian and Chinese religions. And all the way through my life, really, I was trying to work out what is the basis for these religions? What's the historical basis for them? I mean, it was good that I had all these stories told to me that were teaching me good morals, and that was fine on one level. But on another level, I really wanted to know, but actually, how do I know these stories are true? What's the historical basis for them? And so I investigated that for a while, and I just couldn't really find the answers that were compelling for me. And then I came across Christianity, and it seemed to just have a very strong, solid historical basis. So for example, as I read the Gospels, which record the life and teaching of Jesus, I realized that these weren't just made-up stories, but these were eyewitness accounts, people who saw and heard and interacted with Jesus, and they recorded what they experienced with Jesus. And it's a little bit like, I guess, a newspaper, which is an eyewitness account of different events in the world. Well, that's what I found in the Gospels. But not just what his disciples saw and wrote about him, but I also realized that a lot of what I find in the Bible was attested to by non-Christian sources. So people who were not Christians, maybe even anti-Christian, but they seem to corroborate what we see in the Bible. So that added another layer of historical certainty. And then I looked at what the Bible is, and I guess for many of us who are not familiar with the Bible seems to be just one book. But actually the Bible is made up of 66 different books, written by 40 different human authors. It's written in 3 different languages, in Hebrew, in Greek, and Aramaic. It's actually written over the course of 2,000 years. And so a lot of those 40 different human authors, they never met each other at all. And yet the Bible story is one coherent story about what God has done in Jesus Christ. So you put those things together, the eyewitness testimony, the non-Christian sources, and just this coherent story of the Bible, that added a huge weight of certainty to what I was interacting. But the second thing, I think, is the person of Jesus. Apart from the fact that he's real, from all the things I've said earlier, I just read the Gospels and I was just amazed what a good man he is, the only good man out there in the world. But in addition to that, the miracles that he performed, they were just remarkable. And I kept asking myself, who is this man? Who is this man? And then lastly, I came to the cross where he died for sinners like us. And that just blew my mind because all along my whole life, I thought of religion, a bit like a ladder. You might not think I need a ladder, I'm so tall. But I thought of religion like a ladder, I have to climb my way up to God with my good works, my rituals, my religious performance, my morality. I just climb my way up to God my whole life, and I hope I get there. But I realized in Christianity, no, it's not the ladder. Actually, it's the cross. God has come down in the person of Jesus Christ, and he's died on the cross to rescue people like me and Wei Xiang and you by dying in our place. So I no longer have to earn my way up to God. No, actually, God rescues me in the person of Jesus. He dies in my place for my sin, my rejection of God. And so it's just fundamentally different. I'm not rescued by rule keeping. I'm rescued by a Savior who has done something definitive for me in history. So that's what drew me to Christianity.
Great. Thanks for the introduction.
Friends, thanks for joining us today. Allow me to pray as we begin. Let's pray together. Dear God, please help us to understand your word and to consider it afresh. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Whoever you are, whatever you've done, I want to tell you that today you can be forgiven by God. Forgiven for every unkind word, forgiven for every sinful thought, forgiven for every selfish act. In fact, not just forgiven by God, but welcome home by God with a warm embrace and with a feast fit for a king. I wonder if you can imagine how good that is to be free from the guilt of your past and to be free from the fear of judgment in the future. Well, that's what Jesus is offering you today. Forgiveness full and free. Whoever you are, whatever you've done. Friends, I can imagine your response. You're thinking at this moment, well, Dinesh, that just sounds too good to be true. Well, not according to Jesus. In that Bible story read for us earlier, we see what Jesus really thinks about forgiveness. The setting of that story is given to us in verse 1 to 2, sentence 1 to 2 in our passage. Let me read it for us. It says this: Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to hear Jesus, and the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, This man Jesus receives sinners and eats with them. Now immediately, I wonder if you can see the issue in our passage. Jesus, he has come as the Son of God, and you would expect him to hang out with the Pharisees and the scribes. You know, they are the religious, moral do-gooders of the day. But you see who instead Jesus is hanging out with? He's hanging out with tax collectors and sinners. Now, tax collectors back in those days, they're not like our tax collectors today who are upstanding civil servants. No, tax collectors back in Jesus' day, they were traitors and they were cheats. Traitors because they sided with the occupying Roman army instead of their own Jewish people, and they were cheats because they often taxed you more than they should so they could pocket some money for themselves. So the tax collectors, they were there, and also the sinners. Now, who are the sinners? Well, they are the prostitutes, the drunkards, they were the criminals, basically the filth of society. And do you see who Jesus was hanging out with? Well, not with the religious, moral do-gooders of society, but with the scum of society. I guess in Singaporean terms today, well, Jesus, he would be hanging out with, prostitutes and moneylenders and online scammers in Geylang, rather than pastors and priests and monks. And therefore, not surprisingly, the scribes, the Pharisees, they grumble at Jesus. Do you see what they say? Verse 2, this man receives sinners and eats with them. In other words, they're asking the question, look, whose side is Jesus on? Is he on the side of sinners? Or is he on the side of do-gooders? Is Jesus inclusive, or is he intolerant? Well, Jesus answers them with this story about a father and his two sons. The father in the story represents God, and the two sons, well, they represent all of us. And let's explore this story by first looking at the father and his rebellious younger son. Friends, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that this younger son is a rebel. He's young, he's brash, he wants everything in life right here, right now. So much so he has the audacity to go up to his father to demand his share of the inheritance. Look at verse 12. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that's coming to me. Now, if you said that to your own father, and I don't recommend that you do, but if you did, well, what would that show about how you treat your father? Well, it would show actually that you couldn't care less about your father. In fact, you would be saying to your father, look, I'd rather you drop dead right now so that I can get my hands on your money. Do you see? That's the problem with this younger, rebellious son. He doesn't want to have anything to do with his father at all. He doesn't want a relationship with the father. All he wants are the blessings from the father. He wants the gifts, but not the giver. Now, friends, my guess is that it's unlikely any of us would have treated our earthly fathers in this way. But the Bible tells us that the younger son, well, he's a picture of what all of us have done to God, our Creator. We live in God's world, we breathe God's air, we enjoy God's gifts, and yet we want nothing to do with God. You know, as I think about it, I think in our heart of hearts, we all know that God exists. We know that God exists because we look at the wonder of creation all around us, and it just screams out to us that this world did not come about by random chance. We know God exists because, we look at the diversity, the beauty of the 8.7 million living species in our world, and it screams out to us that, living organisms did not evolve from dead matter. We know God exists because we human beings, we have an innate sense of right and wrong. We are people who feel guilt. We long for forgiveness. We yearn for relationships. We desire to worship. It screams out to us that we are not just, a random collection of atoms that came from nowhere and are going nowhere. And yet, what have we all done? Well, we've suppressed the truth about God, and we pretend He's not there. The tragedy is we want the blessings of God. Oh, we want health. We want the talents that we have. We want the material things, family, kids, of course. But we want nothing to do with God. We don't want to know Him. We don't want a relationship with Him. Like this younger, rebellious son, we want the gifts, but not the giver. That certainly describes me. I wonder if you can see it also describes you. Well, what do you think is the consequence of living like this? Well, just look at the younger son in our story. Verses 13 to 16, they tell us that his freedom didn't lead to his fulfillment, but to his fall. He squandered everything on reckless living, but his life descended into a living hell. Look at verse 16. He's so desperate. He was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. Can you imagine that? To be so desperate that you're working in a pigsty as a Jew and you're longing for the disgusting, smelly food that even the pigs ate. Do you see how utterly lost he is? He's hungry, he's humiliated, he's homeless, he's helpless, he's hopeless. But just then, he comes to his senses. He realizes what a fool he's been to try to live without his father, and so he says in verse 18, I will arise and go to my father. I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. Friends, that takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? Do you notice how that there's no blame shifting? No excuses. No, just a humble, open admission of his wrongdoing. I wonder if you realize that's all it takes to become a Christian. People don't become Christians by being, nice, religious, moral, respectable people. No, people become Christians, even the worst rebels, by saying sorry to God and coming back to live with God as God of their lives. Are you willing to do that? Well, maybe you are, but you're kind of wondering whether God will accept you if you come home. After all, you're thinking, well, perhaps God is intolerant, He's not inclusive, He's only going to accept good people. Well, think again, because look at how the father in our story reacts. Verse 20. He arose and came to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring quickly the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Isn't the father's reaction just beautiful? I mean, the moment he catches sight of his son from afar, he drops everything. He runs through the fields. He embraces his son. He showers him with kisses and he throws a party. I wonder if you can see, this is what God is really like. The embrace, the kiss, the robe, the ring, the shoes, the fattened calf, the celebration. They all proclaim loud and clear, God is loving and gracious and forgiving. Friends, there is no interrogation. There is no scolding at all. No, quite the contrary. God's arms are wide open, ready to receive even the worst rebels who return to Him. Do you know, when I think about this, I think the Father's reaction actually, it is so beautiful, it's actually scandalous. I mean, just think about it with me. You know, it's as if you messed up, but you get rewarded. You wish your father dead, but you get welcome home. You squandered everything, but you get a party thrown in your honor. I mean, that's like, you know, my children at home not behaving, not doing their homework, not eating their dinner. And what do I do instead? Well, instead, I reward them with a double serve of dessert. It just doesn't make sense. In which universe does this make sense? Well, only in Christianity. And do you know why? Well, because in no other religion in the world is the cost of your forgiveness ever paid for, except in Christianity. Let me explain. And the Bible says that God the Father, He can see us floundering in our sin. The sin of rejecting Him as God and our daily sin of the selfish lives that we live. And God, you know, He could have abandoned us, just abandoned us, helpless, hopeless creatures. And if He did, we would be lost forever. But God didn't do that. No, in His love, He sent His only Son, Jesus, to die on the cross in the place of sinners just like you and just like me, so that we can be forgiven by God and welcome home by God with a warm embrace and a feast fit for a king, just like this rebellious son. Let me ask you, does this sound like an intolerant God to you? A judgmental God? The truth is, friends, God, He's not waiting, you know, to judge you or condemn you or punish you. No, God, He's waiting actually to put His arm around you and to welcome you home as His child. Do you realize that? Well, will you come home to Him? Well, that's the younger, rebellious son. What about the older son? Perhaps you're a little bit more like him, a Mr. or Miss Respectable. You see, the older son is someone who would think of as someone who's being really filial, good, a respectable son. He's been serving in the family business his whole life. But here's the tragedy. He's self-righteous. Have a look at verse 29. Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. Do you notice how this older son, he mentions I, me, my 5 times in one verse? All he can think about is himself, his works and his reward. Do you see how self-righteous it is? He actually thinks that he is so good that the Father owes him. You know, this older son, he is a picture of the self-righteous Pharisees and scribes we met right at the start of our passage. But more than that, he's a picture of all of us who are the respectables in society. You know, the moral, religious do-gooders, People who think, look, God must accept us because we've earned it, we've done enough, we are good enough. I wonder if that could be you. Well, if that's you, can I say our passage says, be warned. Because the older son, he's in our story to show us that no one is good enough for God on their own. Here's the thing, the pass mark for goodness in God's book, it's not just to be better than the people around you. That's what the older son thought. He thought, look, I'm better than my younger brother and therefore I must be accepted by my father. But that's not true. God's pass mark is to be as good as him. In other words, you don't pass by scoring 70% in the morality test of life. No, you pass if you score 100%. And look, by that yardstick, no one passes. Not the Pharisees, not the scribes, not the older son, not you, and not me. But I wonder if you can see the good news. Look at the father's reaction, verse 28. His father came out and entreated him. Do you know what that word entreat means? It means that the father pleaded with him. It means that the father begged him. But what did the father entreat or plead or beg him to do? Well, to realize the truth of verse 31, and he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. In other words, the father said, 我求求你，你进来吧，我所有的都是你的。I'm begging you, please come in. All that I have is yours. Again, can I ask you, does that sound like a judgmental, intolerant God to you? Or actually, does it sound like God is loving and gracious and forgiving? Friends, the point is that God, He welcomes all kinds of sinners, because when the Lord Jesus went to the cross, He had every type of sinner in mind. Rebels who know they are lost, and respectables who think they are okay. Can I ask you, can you see that you need Jesus? Well, will you come home to God today? Let's wrap up. Whose side is Jesus on? Is He for sinners? Or is He for do-gooders? Is He intolerant or is He inclusive? Well, I hope you can see crystal clear. Jesus is for sinners of every shape or form. Because no one is too bad for Jesus. And no one is too good that they don't need Jesus. The greatest tragedy of the universe actually is that the only people who will be rejected by Jesus on Judgment Day are those who refuse His invitation to come home. So can I plead with you? Don't let that tragic fate be your fate. As I end, can I ask you, what holds you back from coming home to God today? You know, as a pastor, the number one answer that I hear is this: I just don't see the urgency. Look, Dinesh, one day I will, but just not now. You know, I said earlier that I'm a father of 3 children, right? Ethan, he's 16, and Elijah is 13 years old, and Emma is 9 years old. And together, my wife and my kids, we live in a HDB flat. I want you to imagine with me that, imagine one day, one of my children, they just leave home. They run away. No explanation, they're just gone, just like that, one day gone. Well, what would I do? What would I do as a father? Well, I imagine obviously I'll make a police report and I'll work with the police to try and find this lost child of mine. I'll take out ads everywhere on the TV, radio, newspaper, social media, everywhere. I'll call up all their friends trying to figure out if anyone knows anything about them. I would do everything in my power to search for them. But maybe after months or years, if I can't find them, or perhaps what I'll resort to at the end will be to just sit at the void deck of my HDB flat, just looking out onto the street every single day, hoping to catch a glimpse of their silhouette, just praying, hoping, wishing that they would come home. Wouldn't you do the same thing as me? Well, imagine one day you meet this lost child of mine just out there in the world and they're enjoying themselves. And you ask them, look, when are you going to return to your father? And imagine if they say to you, well, I just don't see the urgency. One day I will, but just not now. Well, friends, what would that reveal? Well, it revealed that they have no idea the hurt and the offense that they have caused me as their father. And they'll also reveal that they have no idea how much I love them and how much I long for them to return. Dear friend, God is loving, gracious, and forgiving. His arms are wide open. If you truly get that, you will delay no more. Whoever you are, whatever you've done, come home to God today. There's a simple prayer on your screen. Well, why don't you say those words to tell God that you are ready to come home to Him? Will you say those words with me? Well, let's pray those words together. Dear God, I'm sorry that I have rejected you. Thank you for sending Jesus to pay for my sin so that I can come home to you today. Please help me to live now as your child. Amen. Well, friends, we're going to listen to a song now to help us further reflect on what we've just heard.
I will see the world to come, for one has suffered in my place. Now there is grace awaiting me, awaiting me. Judgment's done, atonement's made, the ransom's paid, no guilt remains. Now there is grace awaiting me, awaiting me. Grace and welcome from the Father. Grace, forgiveness full and free. Grace that's greater than our failings. Oh, there is grace awaiting me.
I take comfort in the hope of the thief upon the cross. I am worthy of as little love as he. Like this man, I won't despair, for life's ahead, what joy we'll share. There is grace awaiting me, awaiting me.
a welcome from the Father. Grace, forgiveness full and free. Grace that's greater than our failings. Oh, there is grace awaiting me. Jesus, you have loved and borne me by your death. My debts are paid. I am yours. I stand beside you, fearless, face the coming day. I will see the world to come, despite the sin that I have done. For there is grace awaiting me, awaiting me. All who call upon the Lord will rise to life with peace assured. For there is grace awaiting me, awaiting me. Grace, a welcome from the Father. Grace, forgiveness full and free. Grace that's greater than our failings. Oh, there is grace awaiting me. Oh, there is grace awaiting me.
Friends, I hope you found the talk as well as the song moving and something worth considering. Please, can I just ask one favor from you? Please, could you go to the link that you see on the bottom of the screen and let us know how you found today. It will not take more than 1 minute of your time. We love to find out how we can serve you, along with any suggestions or feedback that you may have. Before we end, allow me to speak to two groups of people. Now, if you're someone who has prayed along with Dinesh just now, I'd like to say a very warm welcome to our family. We're delighted to have you with us. Please, could you go to that same link to let us know that you have done so? We'll be so thrilled to know this. And if you like, we'll be happy to tell you about the next few steps that you can take. Now, if you're someone who's not quite ready yet, but you found what was shared today compelling and worth considering, allow me to highlight two groups that we run that is catered for you to find out a bit more. Now, the first group is called the Reading Room. This is a book club that looks at big questions people have about Christianity. Questions such as, why is there suffering if there's a God? Hasn't science disproved Christianity? Can we trust the Bible? Is the Bible historically reliable, or is it just a fictional story? Big questions like that. And what they do is that they will come together each time. They will look at a New York Times best-selling book called The Reason for God. Each time they meet, they will look at one chapter of the book which answers one of these questions. So if this is something that you're interested in, please feel free to join that group. The other group we run is called Christianity Explored. Now, this is a group that, as the name suggests, explores what Christianity is all about. But unlike the Reading Room, which is based on a book, this group is based on a video. And the way it's run is that the group will meet once a week to first watch a 10 to 15 minute video that aims to present who Jesus is from the Bible. After that, they'll discuss any questions that you might have. Now, we've run this group many times for lots of people, both Christians and non-Christians, and many of them have found it very helpful. So can I commend this group to you? Come for the first time, see how you like it, and then decide whether you want to continue after that or not. Both these groups will be run over Zoom, which means it will be done at the comfort and the convenience of your own home. This is a fantastic way to find out a bit more, particularly after what we've heard today. More details can be found on the same link that I mentioned. In fact, all the details can be found in that link. So please visit that link when you have the time. That's all from me. Thank you once again for joining us. Please have a great week ahead.